Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and you're very welcome to another edition of the DriveThru Sports Show. Another Cheltenham Festival special. I'm absolutely delighted today to say that last night's picks, if we want to call them that, for today's race worked out very well. Uh, Appreciated, certainly lived up to what I thought he would be, my absolute banker for the entirety of the 4 days. It's a long, long time ago since I would venture to suggest, many others have seen as impressive a winner of the Supreme Novices Hurdle. Because I think the important thing to say is that the horses that finished in behind him were no mugs. Uh, Obviously not, because anything that goes to run at the Cheltenham Festival goes on merit and wouldn't be there if it wasn't for them having proved their credentials to be there. So I think that only served to make the performance produced by Willie Mullins' charge under Paul Townend even more breathtaking. And it was a case of the further he travelled, the further he was in front, and the world would appear to be that one's oyster now because well, as we were to go on and see later on in the day, that Honeysuckle went on to maintain her 100% career record. She's now 11 wins from 11 races. Again, and I'm always saying and writing that repetition is one of the greatest foibles that one can fall into in this business, but sometimes it is just plainly unavoidable. And whatever about appreciate its victory in the Supreme Novices being eye catching and breathtaking, I honestly don't believe there are enough superlatives in the English language to articulate just how good Honeysuckle and indeed Rachael Blackmore, her partner, uh, were in the champion hurdle, and more to the point, what it will do for racing on a broader scale. In terms of, well, I know Epitant was a mare who won the champion hurdle last year, so perhaps the spectacle of a mare winning the champion hurdle is not what it might have been some years back, because of course, as we now know, there is a fairly extensive and very welcome program of races for mares throughout the season. But I think seeing Honeysuckle do what she did would certainly, it should serve to as a reminder that anybody, if a horse is good enough, be they gelding or mare or whatever they may be, if they're good enough, there's no reason why they shouldn't be allowed to take their chance. But I think even allowing for that line of thought, nobody, not even Henry the Bromhead or Rachel herself or Kenny Alexander, the owner, I'm sure, could have foreseen the absolute awesomeness with which the 7-year-old blew away what was, lest it be forgotten, a small but highly quality field in behind her. Now, as was no surprise to me, I have to say, to see the gallant and admirable Sharjah running on once again at the festival to grab his slice of the pie, if you wanted to put it that way. And I know from looking back, I know from briefly looking back, that it's a race I want to go back and study again, because there's one horse who I've had in my horse tracking mind, will we say, for a long time, and that is actually Honeysuckle stablemate Aspire Tower. Um, I do remember him coming up in Robbie Power's hands at some stage during the race, but I would love to just watch it back and see, because he's only a 5-year-old, and just because today didn't exactly go according to plan for him, with the yard having won the race, I'm sure they won't be overly upset. But I would still feel he's a horse with a very big future, and one that this corner will certainly be willing and able to stay on the right side of going forward. Of course, before the champion hurdle and the Honeysuckle exhibition, the second big race of the day was the Arkle Challenge Trophy Chase. And in my preview last night, I made mention of the fact that with an Ergamine gone out of the lineup, that as I was saying, like with an Ergamine gone out of the lineup for the Arkle, it could have very easily been considered to be a penalty kick for the Nicky Henderson trained Shishkin. Now, of course, the odds-on favourite, the odds-on favourite as he was, did go on and record the consummately easy victory that his prohibitive odds before the contest would have indicated that he should have done, but uh, while in no way seeking to detract from Shishkin, indeed, I don't see how anyone could possibly detract from the 7-year-old, given the outstanding level of performance he was able to switch up to higher gear to today. Because if you remember, uh, in last night's video, I said that if I had any slight reservations about his uh, odds-on status, or whatever way one would like to call it, that the only reservation I had was a doubt as to whether he could step up to the level of performance that one would like to think would be required to win an Arkle when it's considered that, to be brutally honest, he hadn't encountered a whole lot in terms of quality opposition on his way to today's engagement at Cheltenham. But I suppose the other side of that is you can only beat what's in front of you, and he certainly did that before today and absolutely obliterated what were some very useful opponents today in their own right. Personally speaking, I think special mention must again be made for another Henry de Bromhead horse, Captain Guinness, who ended up finishing third, uh, having just been run out of second in the last stride by the Cullentra horse. I suppose the only if the race was to be rerun again, I suspect Rachel might not have just chosen to track the Dan Skelton runner All Mankind because when the two of them got lit up and started racing each other, in effect, what they actually did was cut each other's throat and cancel each other out, which played right into the hands of Nico de Bonneville, who was able to sit and just basically ease the Ferrari into gear whenever he wanted and bolted like the good thing he was. Now to go to the first of the notoriously trappy Cheltenham handicaps, and yet again it lived up to its billing with the 28 to 1 winner, Vintage Clouds for Sue Smith and Ryan Mania in the colours of Trevor Hemmings, uh, garnering an overdue victory at the big meeting as an 11-year-old, having uh, rattled the crossbar on numerous occasions at the big meeting in March. So it's always nice to see a story like that come through. As regards the horses I had a look at myself, Cepage was as near as we got to the winner, who was strongly running on fourth. So any races over a trip with a bit of cut in the ground in the near future, he would definitely be well worth the investment in again. And then what had we? We had the Boodles Juvenile Hurling. Now this was a bit of a monkey puzzler for me, because obviously anyone who has read my material or watched my videos in the recent or distant past will know of my fondness for Noel Meade, and indeed his his representatives on the track. But I can absolutely assure you that I did not have a bean on Jeff Kidder in the Boodles Juvenile hurdle, or as many of us will forever call it, the Fred Winter. But it goes without saying that I'm absolutely delighted for Noel and the team in Tuva, obviously his wife Derval and Damien McGillick and Emma Connolly and Teresa Maguire and all the gang in Tuva, because I know how long Noel was striving to get his first win in Presbury Park at the big meeting before Sausalito Bay broke a stuck for him in the year 2000. And yes, it might be said that Willie Mullins and Gordon Elliott and Henry de Bromhead probably at this stage as well, and possibly even Joseph O'Brien may be considered more in or hip or whatever you want to call it than the big man from Castleton. But I think it's absolutely fantastic to see him still getting Cheltenham Festival winners, having celebrated his 70th birthday not all that long ago. I firmly believe that there will be more to come from where that came from. I wouldn't actually be surprised if his representative in the Stayers Hurdle on Thursday, Beacon Edge, was to give a very good account of himself as well. As regards my couple of selections for the race, Dermot Wells Coulter did run on well near the finish to run into fifth, so anyone that had a few bob on him each way should get paid out. And he ran on being a Dermot Well horse. I wouldn't be inclined to believe that the ground was entirely to his liking, and as well as that, young John Joe O'Neill not having ridden the horse before, it was undoubtedly a learning curve for him as well. But presuming DK will give him another spin over hurdles. Now I know Dermot has ran horses over hurdles in the past and put them back on the flat, which he will absolutely do with this flat as well. But I know in some cases in the past, they haven't exactly gone back jumping at all after. But I would hope that in this case an exception will be made, because it should be. I think he's a horse still with immense promise. Excuse me, with immense promise as a jumper, and I would be earnestly hoping that we will get to see him over timber again, but in that sense at least, the day belongs to Noel Meade. Absolutely fantastic to see it, especially for owners who I believe are two Wexford men, but they've been with Noel a long time and have had several decent horses with him over the years, but never as big a payday as that. So you love to see people like that getting their day in the sun. And last but by no means least for days one would be what I would have to admit was one of my bankers for the week in Galvin in the I still call it the 4 miler, even though it's 3-6 now, I think. Now, up until very recently, this horse was trained by Gordon Elliott, and I would venture to suggest that Gordon Elliott actually would have done a lot of the work in overseeing this horse's preparation for his outing today, but it's also another. Well, at least I think another. I think this man had Cheltenham victories in the past. Ian Ferguson, who I know does a lot of the breaking and pre-training of horses for the owner Ronnie Bartlett. So let's just say between Gordon and Ian, it was an absolutely outstanding success, and of course Sneezy as well, who is overseeing things while Gordon is on a forced sabbatical, let's say. I'm not going to say much more about that. I think anyone that has read my article last week knows exactly what I think about that situation, and now is neither the time or the place to be harrowing that up again. The one thing I will say is at the very end of that article last week, the last lines I put to it were that hopefully this week Gordon's horses would do the talking for him, and counting Galvin as at least partly down to him, and more specifically Black Tears turning in an absolutely outstanding display in the Mare's hurdle in edging out the short price favourite, and indeed my selection, Concertista. The horses certainly have done Gordon and Sneezy and all the staff in Cullentra and the owners who have been decent enough to stay loyal to him. Very proud so far, and I would be of the opinion that, I know Noel Meade has only the one runner left for the remaining days, that being Beacon Edge in the Stayers Hurdle, but I would hope and expect that perhaps Gavin Cromwell or Gordon will bring more Cheltenham glory to the Royal County before the week is out. I would absolutely love to see Gordon having as good a week as the horses can give him over there. But, from a tipping point of view and from the point of view of the pockets after day one, we certainly couldn't have asked for much better. And I hope some of you got on and, as much as I'm obviously delighted to make a few wow, just to see Gordon being responsible for and associated with, we put it that way, two winners on the card. It just put the icing on the cake from my point of view. So we'll now, I suppose, kick on and have a look forward to day two. And the first race tomorrow is the Ballymore Properties Novices Hurdle, which is over 2 mile and 5. I think I remember correctly. Is that it is 2 mile and 5. Now, at the time of recording, the Henry de Romhead trained, Rachael Blackmore ridden, Rob Kerr owned, Bob O'Linger is the favourite, heading the market at um, heading the market at 5-2, I think it is. Just bear with me a second, folks. The phone is playing tricks. 5-4. My apologies. That's Bob O'Linger at the top of the market at 5-4, and looking at some of that one's back form, in that it was looking at that one's back form, in that it was second to last year's Cheltenham bumper winner, Fernie Hollow, on hurdling debut early on this evening. Now, unfortunately, I only asked a colleague of mine in the racing media during the week what became of Fernie Hollow, and I hear he suffered a stress fracture. Now, I don't know much about equine veterinary, but I think that's something that can come back from. So hopefully we'll see him again. But anyway, after finishing second to him, Bob O'Linger then has gone out in trip for each of his races in the interim, and if I'm to be brutally honest, has looked more and more impressive with each time he's gone out. So, I mean, he's most definitely a worthy favourite in this 2 mile 5 contest. Now, I know the Willie Mullins trained Gallard, the Maineel, is second in the betting at 11-4. Now, again, I would feel that he is in that position in the market on merit. I think it reflects where he stands in relation to the ground. Notionally, at least, he would have to make up on the favourite, going by their respective runs on back form. But for me, I think with the form Henry and Rachel are in, and the back form that Bob O'Linger has in the book, as to say, and he definitely has prospered big time for the step up and trip. Now, to my mind, Gallard de Maineel's last run was his most impressive, but I cannot see myself swerved away from Bob O'Linger. If there was one to come from outside of main calculations, if one wanted to call it that. It would not surprise me if the Joseph O'Brien Kescon Risk outran its price. Currently 12 to 1 or thereabouts, but I think it's Bob English to lose, bar an accident or something going wrong with him. So hopefully that would give the Irish a sixth winner after 8 races in Cheltenham, which would be an absolutely astounding start to the festival. So moving on, then we then have the uh, the 3 mile Grade 1 novice chase. Now I can't remember the actual title of the race, but the whoever comes up with these race titles may as well have just called it the Monkfish Novice Chase, because I have been nothing short of blown away by this horse since he has gone over fences, and I know that Chacon Pursuit is equally held in elevated revere by connections and the racing public at large, and of course he runs also tomorrow in the Queen Mother Champion Chase. But I would feel that Monkfish, whatever they intend to do with Chacon in the future, whether he'll go out and trip or not remains to be seen. But Monkfish, I am sure, if tomorrow goes according to plan, will be squarely pointed, I imagine, at the Gold Cup going forward, in view of the fact that Alboom Photo is getting that bit older, so too Kemboy. So I would say if, to win any race at the Cheltenham Festival is a huge achievement in itself, let alone one of the what we call championship races. But I would feel that providing things go according to plan for Monkfish tomorrow, I would feel that it is essentially an audition for what may be to come further down the line for Rich Ritchie's animal. But of course, that means that he still has to go and do it. And horses don't know what price they are, no more than anything else. So the fact that he's 4 to 11, as I look at the minute, would really, you can't take that as a given as to how they're going to perform. But the second in the betting is the Cullentra train, the big breakaway. Now I could not for the life of me have him not, if he gave me money to back him. There is a Henry de Bromhead horse, Eclat de Rear, I think it's pronounced, Excuse my French if I've got that wrong, but it wouldn't surprise me if that was the one to give Monkfish most to do if anything was to present him with a challenge. But uh, Monkfish, in a culinary sense, is something of a delicacy, and I would expect. I would expect Paul Townend and his equine partner to produce something sumptuous tomorrow to both uh, take the breath away for the day that's in it and indeed whet the appetite for what's to come in the future. Now that takes us on to a handicap hurdle, which is the Pertemps final, of course, now that think of it. And the first horse that would jump jump off the page at me for that is a Willie Mullins trained horse by the name of Koshari, again owned by Rich Ritchie. I know he won a race over the Christmas, I think it was, down the country at one of the small tracks, and I know that he came up to Leopardstown then and ran in what used to be the Pierce Hurdle. I'm not sure what it's called now, but he finished well down the field on the occasion in question. But I would be very much of the opinion that Paul Townend hadn't exactly got his boot all the way to the floor on the accelerator. So I think definitely, as I look at the betting here, he's 15-2 at the moment. So I think that he would be the most obvious one now, as the betting is open up the Gordon, Elliott, Stroke, Sneezy Foster, train Grand Roy is at the head of the betting, but and he is in fact rated £3 higher than Willie's horse, but I would just have a hunch. Now I've had these hunches before and been terribly wrong about them, but today, for example, Galvin was one hunch that did turn out to be true. I just have a hunch about that Kashari out of Willie's yard, and I would be very, very surprised if he's not buying there at the business end of affairs. Now, of course, there is another Willie Mullins horse who deserves mention here as well, that being Blue Sari. Now, Blue Sari was installed as favourite for the Cheltenham bumper a couple of years ago, having ran away with a bumper in Gowran Park uh, on a day I happened to be actually in the Kilkenny venue when the race was on. I would have been totally in support of said gamble for him for the Cheltenham bumper that day, but for whatever reason, even though he finished second that day in the champion bumper, for whatever reason, he just hasn't kicked on over timber yet anyway, but I just have a smell or an inclination that there may be a little bit of as Hannibal Smith in the A team used to say, a bit of a plan coming together here. But I see now when the betting opened early on this evening, Blue Sari was as big as 18 to 1 in a place. He's now half that. So, if it was a thing that anything was to go wrong with Kashari, he certainly has Blue Sari there waiting to pick up the pieces, if one wants to call it that. Of the English trained ones, one can never rule out Nicky Henderson around Cheltenham, and that's why it's also sort of eye raising to see that there is money coming for the Henderson charge, Monte Cristo, under Daryl Jacob. So that would be very interesting to follow in the morning. Now, I just noticed that he's actually rated £7 higher than Blue Sari, so that's nearly a stone. Well, it's a pound short of a stone, and he's only rated a pound less than Kashari. So the three of them on that mark should be bang there. But I would just, if you put a gun to my head, I would say, in view of the fact that I am assuming, um, JP has JP has several different runners in the race. I would be assuming that even though it's notionally thought that he doesn't have a retained jockey at present, I would be assuming that uh, Mark Walsh would have had the pick of whatever he wanted to ride, and that he has sided for Blue Sari will do for me at a bit of a price with Kushari bang there as well. But to finally put a nail in it, Blue Sari each way would be my official selection for the Pertemps Hurdle Final, which then leads us on to the highlight of day two, the Queen Mother Champion Chase, the champion chase for the speedsters, the 2 mile horses. Check on Pursuit. I think I have nearly said all that can be said about him so far. To my recollection, he has only failed to win once since Willie has got him, and I think that was not last Christmas, the Christmas before. And according to what my sources told me, they had actually found a reason why he hadn't performed up to what would have been considered scratch on that occasion. Now, the one thing I like about a horse is that, well, when I say a horse, I think it's a good thing to see in any horse that they can compete in, versatile trips, versatile conditions. But I think all one needs to see about this one is that he is 4 to 5 favourite, and the next in the betting to him is the Henry de Bromhead trained Put the Kettle On, who, of course, was a course and distance winner last year at the festival and under Aidan Coleman, so he's a worthy second favourite. Although it must be acknowledged that um, the Paul Nichols trained politolog, who is the defending champion chaser, is also in the field, currently priced at 9-1. Now, I would have felt that he was a very unlikely and somewhat fortunate winner of the Queen Mother last year. And if memory serves me correctly, I think he got a handy lead and actually stayed there. Now, I don't honestly believe he's certainly not in the rank of a Moscow Flyer or an Azertiop, who his owner John Hales also owned, of course, and sites in Europe. There have been some great 2 mile chasers. Now, I know in one sense you can't knock what the animal has done. He has gone and won the Queen Mother last year and is obviously due fair credit for that. But I would have felt that last year wasn't essentially a vintage renewal of the speed test. Now, I'm not saying this year's is either, but I don't believe that there was anything of the class of Chatham Horseway in it last year, and I would expect, please God, that Paul Townend and Willie will chalk another one up for the Irish in the day's feature. The next race then after the Queen Mother is a race which is actually traditionally one of my most favourite at the meeting, that being the Glenfarclas Cross Country Chase. Now, this is a race that I have long had a love affair with, going back to the days of old Spot the Difference, when first of all ridden by Enda Bulger himself, then the late great John Thomas McNamara, and lastly by none other than Nina Carberry. Now, of course, uh, Nina then went on to win the race with Gard Champetre, and I know she also won it on a horse, which the name has just come back to me now. It was Bultas and Fodas, and if I'm not mistaken, I think the horse sadly passed away somewhat immediately after the line. Now, all the talk going into this year's race is about the JP McManus owned French trained Easy's Land, who has looked imperious in a lot of what he has done so far. Um, and there is no reason why he shouldn't be the 5-6 favourite he currently is. But I know it's always said that you should never let sentiment take over when it comes to betting, but in this case, I cannot help it. And, there has been much publicity at this stage about Tiger Roll being taken out of taken out of the Aintree Grand National because Michael and Eddie O'Leary weren't happy with the way to which Phil Smith, the English handicapper, had a lot of them. So whether this is to be the great horse's last campaign or not, who knows? But I would be of the opinion that you know he could very easily have been set up for this as his primary season target if the lads had made their mind up that they weren't going to Aintree. So I, for once, will be letting sentiment rule me head. I'm going for Tiger Roll, currently priced 92. Um, and as an outside bet, it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if the John McConnell trained some neck was to run into a place at about 10 or 12 to 1. Some neck was basically a cast off when sold out of Willie Mullins. He was formerly owned by Rich Ritchie, but John McConnell has found a trick to him, not for the first time. You know, I know John's profile has rightly and deservedly increased tenfold in recent years and months even, and I became aware during the week that he has had some horses that were in Gordon's care transferred to his yard. Now, I am not going to go into that again. I will absolutely come back to it at some stage in the future, but not this week. But I think when they're on the flatter over jumps, John McConnell has more than proven his acumen at what he does, and it would never surprise me if some neck outran his current odds of 10 to 1. But for once, I'm going to let hard rule head, and hopefully Tiger Roll will be parading through the streets of Summerhill again once the powers that be release the world from house imprisonment and we get back to some sort of normal. Now that takes me on to the penultimate race of day 2, which I will be honest, I have to. Yes, it's the Johnny Henderson Grand Annual Chase. Now, this used to be the concluding race to the festival every year, and why they have saw fit to rejig the program, I honestly don't know, because for as long as the festival has been the 4 days, things have ran, to my mind at least, anyway, smoothly enough as they have been aligned for God knows how long. But look, it is what it is. The Johnny Henderson Grand Annual 2 mile handicap is usually run lickety split at a cracking pace. Joseph O'Brien currently has the top 2 in the betting at Antucas and Embittered being 92 favourite. and Tukas being second in at 13-2. Gordon Elliott's chosen mate is coming in. Well, Gordon Elliott stroke Sneezy Foster. Chosen mate is coming in for heavy support. Is already all but halved in price from 14-1 down to 8-1. Incidentally, I think in this race, each way betting is a must, with most bookmakers paying on the first six. Let me see now. Sky Pirate, trained by John Joe O'Neill, who I had sort of earmarked myself, appears to be on the drift out. Another Joseph O'Brien runner, the third one in the race, in fact. Us and Them is, of course, well, I won't say he's a course specialist, but he has course form and was, in fact, placed in this particular race last year, coming home at a rate of knots. And, I would again have the sense that he may well have been earmarked for this particular target for a long way out. The same would apply to the John Joe O'Neill trained Sky Pirate, but if I was to narrow it down to one, I think I would again give the vote to a Venetia Williams trained representative, the one in today's race who I had a small fancy for, ran a fine race to run into fourth and reward each way punters, and it would be no surprise to me if Ibleo was to again go very close to giving her another festival winner, or at the very least being bang on the premises there in terms of doing so. And if I was to go one other outside of the favourites, and indeed outside of the Irish in this instance, the Philip Hobbs trained Richard Johnson ridden Zanza seems to be rightly placed for this assignment as well. And I know the Hobbs horses went through a very lean period a while back, but there's no doubt that they have returned to absolutely cracking form in the last weeks and months, and I would feel that look, all the English trainers do it, all the Irish trainers do it. I would be of the opinion that the like of Zanza has been laid out for his job tomorrow, so I would be going either Ibleo or Zanza against the field, which leads us to the final race tomorrow, and a race which is always my favourite of the entire 4 days, that being the Champion Bumper. And of course, it would be absolutely no shock to anyone to decipher that the race revolves basically around Willie Mullins and him having a plethora of runners in the race, a situation which of course has increased due to the Cheveley Park horses being taken out of Cullentra and sent. Well, Envoy Allen has gone to Henry, and we'll see him later in the week, please God. And I believe the rest of them have gone to Willie. So as well as Kilcroot and Ramillies, who I have had my eye on for from a long way out for this particular contest, he now also is responsible for the preparation of Sir Gerhard, who, when I was putting the Boyle and Talk Sport list of horses to follow together at the back end of last year, was actually one of the first names onto said list after he absolutely coasted home in a bumper at Down Royal, which over the years has been proven to produce plenty of horses that have gone on to have stellar careers, and you know, even though he was in the care of Gordon at that time, he certainly won't lack anything for having gone to Closutton. And maybe it's a case of sticking with the first horse you see. Now, I know Kilcroot has been absolutely outstanding in anything that he has been asked to do so far, but I have I've had no reason to shy away from Sir Gerhard, unlike Ballyadam in the first race today, who I initially was very, very impressed with at the same Down Royal meeting, but he subsequently disappointed at in the Royal Bond Novice Hurdle in Fairyhouse, and was left a fair bit behind, appreciated at Leopardstown at Christmas. Now, he did, of course, finish second, somewhat by default, behind appreciated the day after the fall of Blue Lord, but Sir Gerhard, I see no reason to sway from him. I will be sticking with Sir Gerhard, and if you're looking at one at a bit of a price, I would not dissuade anyone from having a pop at another Willie Mullins representative, Ramillies, in the Joe Donnelly colours, which have already been in the winners' enclosure this week. I hope some of you made a few bob today, and hopefully we'll keep up the gallop tomorrow. All the best.